Hi, it's Dwyer. It is August 2nd, 2026. Nothing I say in this video should be construed as investment advice. I want everyone to think for themselves. I want everyone to do their own due diligence. All I'm doing here is telling you how I see the lay of the land. The goal, as always, is to get an understanding, a macro, that enables me at least to make money. Right? I need for everyone here to realize that, I want them to think for themselves. I want them to do their own due diligence. I'm just a retail investor, right? Please think for yourself. Now, situational awareness has blown up. The head of situational awareness was a guy who graduated from Columbia at 19. He was the valedictorian. His name was Leopold Aschenbrenner. Right now, let me just say, every great investor I'm aware of, every one, has had trades they regret, trades that went against them. Right? Let me add, I subscribe to a few financial newsletters, and often, often, the newsletter will say, the market's turned against us. We were wrong on this pick. Liquidate your position. Let's move on to other profit opportunities. Right? Clearly, I believe in the newsletters. That's why I subscribe to them. So I just want people to realize that whoever the investor, it could be, Warren Buffett. It could be Ray Dalio. Whoever the investor, recognize that no one's right 100% of the time. Sometimes the bets are existential. One of the arts of investing is to be able to take big risks without having the risks be existential. Right? You want the risks you take to be somewhat hedged. Now, let me point out the obvious here. And gamblers know this intuitively. I believe there's not much difference between the gambling market and the, stock investing market. You're taking risks, you're taking positions, you're betting on the future. Gamblers know that the people winning these big gambling contests, the people scoring big on sports betting, they don't all have PhDs, right? They're not necessarily the star student in class. There's more to being successful than that. They're not necessarily the people in the room with the highest IQs, right? You don't, hear that someone won Circa and then think, oh, that person must be a PhD. That's not the way it works. There's a layer of intelligence that doesn't necessarily translate on aptitude tests. Right? Many of the people who win long term are folks who understand risk but also understand human nature. Right? What creates the market line? How could bettors be so wrong? What myths are bettors following in figuring out what the odds should be? What delusions do bettors have on an ongoing basis? Right, folks? A lot of these insights take experience. So, let me make a point here. Right, on keepingitfree.blogspot.com. Again, keepingitfree.blogspot.com. I've posted an important post from this morning that was placed on X.com by Stansberry Research's founder, Porter Stansberry. Right, Porter has moved on. He has his own venture now, a different venture. But he's a person I follow, and he makes the point that Aschenbrenner made an existential mistake. Right? He bet the welfare of his hedge fund on a flawed premise. Right? Now, this is a guy with a history that includes OpenAI. Right? Aschenbrenner in his 20s, not a lot of experience. Right? He was convinced that AI was going to disintermediate all of these software as a service companies. He was wrong in that assumption, according to Porter Stansberry. Let me also make another point here, too. I'm going to sound authoritative in saying he was wrong. But what I want to do is actually to convey a nuanced message. Right? Maybe he was right and the timing was off. Maybe he was wrong, as I believe he was. I believe Porter Stansberry is right. The market is going to be the ultimate arbiter. They're going to tell us in the long term as market prices adjust. Right? It's really up to you to crunch the numbers, look at the data, to make the decision for yourself. Don't take the views expressed in any high-risk video that I make as gospel. I'm just giving you my perspective in the moment, and it may evolve over time. Now, Porter Stansberry believes that Aschenbrenner was wrong in that assessment. Right? Aschenbrenner looked at things mathematically. Right? AI, you can have AI create programs as good, theoretically, as the Microsoft Office suite. Right? Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. So the idea is, why would I pay subscription fees to Microsoft by these, for these products when I can build them in-house? When I can have my AI create a Microsoft Word knockoff. Right? And as Porter points out, as is obvious in my own legal practice, right, the reason you have programs like Microsoft Office, right, the reason why Google Docs didn't disintermediate Microsoft Office, the reason you have programs like Adobe Acrobat and the Adobe suite of products is because that software has incumbency. My word, not Porter's. Right? When I prepare a draft of an agreement and I'm sending it to an opposing counsel, whether I have the capability or not to create a Microsoft Word knockoff doesn't matter, because I have to make sure when I send a proposed agreement to an opposing counsel to mark up, to review, and to provide their comments, I need to make sure that they can open the document, that they're using the same platform that I'm using, that they know how to use the revision features of the platform that I have sent them the document in. Right? The only way our commerce, our interaction is going to work is if we're using the same platform. That platform has to have market penetration, market credibility. So, of course, Microsoft Office does. When I prepare a premarital agreement and I'm sending it to an opposing counsel, I'm thinking, okay, great. I want to send it to them in Microsoft Office, whether or not that's my favorite, whether or not it's their favorite. But both of us know it has market penetration and is generally accepted. So I'm not being unreasonable. It's not a power move to say, here's the first draft of the premarital agreement in Microsoft Word format for your edits and comments. Now understand, someone who is thinking mathematically, who hasn't been in the real world, hasn't been in that position where they're thinking what's widely accepted. Porter makes the point that not all software is accepted by the portions of the United States government that requires security clearance. You know, it takes years to build up enough credibility where the United States government is going to give you security clearance. Some of these software companies, Microsoft, Adobe, they have security clearance. Right? If I'm some business and I create my own stack of software using my own AI, maybe it's great, maybe it's functional, but it's going to take me some time to get security clearance. If I'm operating in the now, if I'm bidding on projects in the now, I need to use software that already has security clearance. So Microsoft, Adobe, I'm just using those two, right? Because they're broadly known, because they've been around for a while. You know, I need to be adept at using those platforms. So when I submit my proposal to the United States government, it's in a form that the government approves. Now, situational awareness was shorting some of these software as a service companies under the logic that they're going to fade over time, because anyone can create similar software now, right? Someone I follow, James Altucher, has pointed out that he was able to create at low cost a Call of Duty knockoff, right, in a matter of hours using AI. AI is that powerful. But just understand, you have Call of Duty communities. You have people who've never met each other, who share a passion for Call of Duty. Part of being a gamer is being able to be part of a gaming community. If everyone uses AI to come up with their own version of Call of Duty, they're going to be missing out on the community aspect. They're not going to be able to gauge the greatness of fellow players if those fellow players are using their own platform, not the common platform. So, situational awareness was operating in some theoretical world that didn't exist, that didn't consider certain variables, and their failure to consider those variables was existential. Right? They suffered huge losses. Let me also point out too that making existential bets with great leverage, the leverage is a big part of the story, magnifies the risk involved. Right? Aschenbrenner, just like long-term capital management, right? A group of Phi Beta Kappas, PhDs, valedictorians, who ran a failed hedge fund. Right? Aschenbrenner didn't know the risk he was ignoring. He didn't understand that some theoretical world isn't the world we operate in. That in the world we operate in, I have to know that the format I'm using is one that's accessible to the attorney I'm sending the document to the client I'm sending the document to. Folks, it costs his investors. I have no doubt the guy is sharp and he'll bounce back. Right? Just as many investors have bounced back. Again, everyone has their story where they lost a lot of money. Everyone has their story about how something happened that was outside the normal standard deviation. Something happened that was a black swan in the parlance of Nassim Taleb, right? That people didn't expect. But yet, these outlier events happen so often that we even have the term black swan to describe them. Right now here, I can't call situational awareness's oversight on the value of, software as a service, incumbent software to be a black swan. It should have been something, in my opinion, that situational awareness was aware of. In fact, you have a whole group of people here who were saying that the bloodletting in software as a service, that sector of the market, was overdone. Right? You have a whole group of investment newsletters that have said, gee, I don't know what's going on, but Adobe shouldn't be down like this. Right? You recognize, part of the value of Microsoft Office above and beyond its features is the fact that it's widely accepted. You recognize that. Microsoft is savvy enough to not overcharge for the product. They're basically saying, hey, if you want these benefits of widespread acceptance, we'll charge you just enough so we make a profit, we have an incentive to continue to innovate. And you aren't overcharged to the point where you think, okay, I've got to go out and I've got to create a new product. I've got to compete with a Goliath, Microsoft Office. Right? So, folks, take a look at the Porter Stansberry post that I've posted at keepingitfree.blogspot.com. Recognize that having a high IQ, being a valedictorian at 19, doesn't guarantee success. Nothing does. I'm sure there are many PhDs, many valedictorians who aren't multimillionaires, who aren't always right. Right? I'm sure you're aware of many, many people who've been very, very successful in the market, who aren't PhDs, aren't valedictorians, aren't relying on, very sophisticated financial models, have somehow been successful investors without the benefits historically of artificial intelligence. Right? Being valedictorian, having a high IQ, doing well on aptitude tests has its own benefits. It certainly can attract capital. People will say, hey, this person distinguished themselves in academia. They must know what they're talking about. Let me invest in their fund. But recognize what Robert Kiyosaki's been saying for years. Right? Recognize what a law school teacher told me when I was in law school. Right? The people in law school making A's, they teach. The people in law school making B's, they get jobs in law firms. The people in law school who get C's, well, they make money. Right? I mean, understand, I appreciate the brilliance of situational awareness. I appreciate the brilliance of long-term capital management. Right, folks? Some of the academic models they're following are flawed. Some of their reasoning is flawed. Right? Some of the flaws are existential. Those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comments section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.